Where else can you find the Mothman, a woman who avenged her husband's death by riding against the enemy, a true battleground, and the final resting place of great Shawnee leader Chief Cornstalk? Well, there are two answers. You can either go to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, or you can find all of this and more on this episode of Between the Dates. We've all seen grave markers and headstones, and normally they have two dates: birth and death, beginning and end. The events that occur between the dates tell the real story. Me, along with my team, bring you the stories, revelations, and history of what happens between the dates. Well, without a doubt, today is going to be the hottest episode of Between the Dates that we've ever filmed. It's supposed to be a scorcher. So we're heading to Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Have any one of you out there ever heard of Chief Cornstalk? Cornstalk was a great Shawnee Native American leader who really played a pivotal part in the history of that time. He has a very unique final resting place. It's actually on the grounds of the Battle of Point Pleasant where it was held. So let's make our way to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and hey, who knows what we'll find on the way on this episode of Between the Dates. We have made it to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and I don't know if any of you all have heard about the legends and folklore surrounding Point Pleasant. Well, there was a bridge that connected West Virginia to Ohio called the Silver Bridge, and that bridge collapsed and several people died. Well, legend goes that there was something called a Mothman that was spotted flying under the bridge right before it collapsed. And if you've ever heard of the Mothman, there's a movie about it, The Mothman Prophecies. Point Pleasant is also home of the Mothman, and there's a lot of legend and folklore surrounding it. So we're going to go check some of it out, and I think there's even a statue of the Mothman. Now we're going down the streets of Point Pleasant. This is a very old and very historic town. Now there is a historical marker that actually does talk about the Silver Bridge collapse. Constructed in 1928, connected Point Pleasant where we are today in Kanawha, Ohio. Name credited to aluminum colored paint used. First I-bar suspension bridge of its type in the U.S. Rush hour collapse on December 15, 1967 resulted in 31 vehicles falling into the river, killing 46 and injuring 9. Failed I-bar joint and weld identified as cause resulted in congressional passage of National Bridge Inspection Standards in 1968. So a little memorial here to the Silver Bridge. And this was really in the tri-state area, Kentucky, Ohio, West Virginia, where I live. This was a big deal. Now I'm about an hour and a half away from home, from where I live in Point Pleasant. We're going to show you all some of the sights, and this whole Mothman thing brings a lot of people to this area. But there's a lot of history here too. So we'll check out some of the sights before we make our way to the grave of Chief Cornstalk, the Shawnee Native American leader. You can see here this old, I love these old movie theaters. And these are just sites you don't see anymore, but I've always thought that these were very, very neat. I'd love to see what the inside of that looked like. I mean, obviously I would love to see. Yeah, just those windows are so tinted out you really can't see anything but reflections. But this is definitely a piece of yesteryear. I would love to know if any of you out there have ever been to Point Pleasant, or have you heard of the Mothman? You can see these old historic buildings. This is another interesting site, the historic Lowe Hotel. Not sure how much we can get on video here. It says right here used to be a barbershop, saloon, and storeroom. A lot going on. I'm going to tell you this, there's a lot of people here to see the Mothman statue today too. I think we'll have to stand in line just to look at it. There it is right over there. And also right beside of it here, the world's only Mothman Museum. So when I say they capitalize on the Mothman legend in this area, you can see they certainly do it, and there's no shortage of people here today. We'll get over here and take a look at the statue of the Mothman here in just a moment. For all things Mothman, this is the place to be. Does the line get crazy here at times?
Oh, it gets crazy.
Does it?
The Mothman Festival.
Yeah, I'd say so. Now, when is that?
Every third weekend in September, regardless of how that falls.
Okay.
This year, I think it's 20 and 21, or maybe it's 21 and 22.
So every third weekend in September,
Yep.
the Mothman Festival.
And it's a blast. And crowd.
We'll need to check it out. Legend of the Mothman right here. Right here's the statue. Just talking to one of the workers here. Do you all have a lot of visitors this way?
Sorry?
Said, do you all have a lot of visitors this way?
Oh, yeah.
I'd say so. It's a lot of people here today for sure.
They come from all over the world, actually.
Really? Come from all over the world to see the Mothman. So we're just leaving the Mothman statue. You heard some of my conversation there with one of the workers from the Mothman Museum, saying that the Mothman Festival is every third weekend in September, and people from all over come to it. Very neat, and like I said, they definitely capitalize it very well in the area, and there's a lot of people just here today. We're going to walk down here to the river, and there's a lot of murals back here that kind of become famous for anymore in Point Pleasant, highlighting the history of this place and this area, and just a beautiful location. It really does a good job of highlighting the history of this area. And a beautiful river walk here. This says the city of Point Pleasant is located at the confluence of the Ohio and Kanawha rivers. It is one of the oldest cities along the river. The city was first named by George Washington in 1770. So definitely a history back to the nation here. Definitely some serious navigation of the times here between the colonials and the Native Americans. And a lot of that culminated the Battle of Point Pleasant, which that area is where Cornstalk is buried. So we'll actually be on those grounds where that battle took place. And down here by the river, there are a couple of statues here as well. Here's actually one of Cornstalk and of General Andrew Lewis.
That's kind of just my face when I'm outside.
We'll definitely talk about Cornstalk a little more. These are some very, very nice murals, though. Right here is the mighty Ohio. Very beautiful and picturesque today. Like I mentioned earlier, it's going to be a warm day, but actually here in this shade beside this river, it feels really good, not too bad at all. You can see right here, this marker, the 2 Indy Way State Park. And that's where we're going to. Now, Cornstalk's final remains did move around a bit, so this wasn't his original burial ground, but he was actually moved here. This was kind of turned into a park. Cornstalk had a very interesting history and a very, well, sad death. He was actually one of the major voices of the Shawnee people. And what he would do, he actually kind of made it a mission to make peace with the colonial people so they can kind of live together in, you know, peace and harmony, if you will. So he actually came to Point Pleasant to negotiate and try to forge some sort of way forward with the colonialists. And while he was there, and just a terrible piece of irony, while he was there, a Native American killed a colonialist, and he was imprisoned. And as soon as that happened, they actually killed Cornstalk, Cornstalk's son, and a couple other Native Americans there as well. So he was actually on a peaceful mission to stop the violence and try to forge a way forward in peace and harmony. And it just so happens, in a terrible piece of irony, he was there when a Native American killed a colonialist, and that would lead to Cornstalk's death. So we're making our way this back way to his final resting place, and we'll see what else we can find along the way. Now here's the statue of Mad Ann Bailey. And we're going to go to her final resting place as well, because it is in this park as well. But a very interesting story that Mad Ann Bailey had. I want to take a video there of the statue so we could show you the story that's coming up. There are a few different things to look at here in this park. That's a monument over there. We'll take a closer look at it here in just a moment, but a monument over there to the Battle of Point Pleasant. I want to show you all this marker over here. Now, you've seen the statue of Mad Ann Bailey, heroine of the frontier. It says, here lies Mad Ann Bailey, heroine of the Virginia frontier. Ann Hennis came to Virginia at age 19. She married Richard Trotter, who was later killed at the Battle of Point Pleasant. Mad Ann, now this is where she got her legend. Mad Ann dressed in buckskins and galloped off to avenge her husband's death. She traveled to the remote settlements carrying messages. Ann later married John Bailey, a member of the garrison at Fort Lee. But yeah, she rode for gunpowder and different supplies and became known as Mad Ann Bailey, avenging the loss of her husband. Now that is a woman right there, to avenge the loss of her man. But really took a lot of bravery to do what she did. So I wanted to pay our respects to Mad Ann Bailey. And let's go over here and take a look at this monument for the Battle of Point Pleasant. And this is, I don't know if this camera will do it justice, but this is huge right here. You can just imagine what type of, hostilities there would be between the two warring sides here. This was fought at the mouth of the Canal River, which is right over the way here. This was part of Lord Dunmore's War. In this battle, a lot of the Native American, even the different Native American nations joined together. And really it all led to Cornstalk's death. The Virginian Army, which this was part of Virginia at the time, even though it's West Virginia now. Virginian Army and the Native Americans did battle right here on these grounds. Right over here is where the rivers come together, the Canal and the Ohio. And if you can see there in the distance, that's where we're heading right now. That is the final resting place of Chief Cornstalk. And this is an absolutely beautiful state park. A lot of people out today. It's a beautiful day, so it shouldn't be too surprising, but I didn't expect that, really. I've been here before and never really seen too many crowds, but I guess the warm weather are bringing people out. And you can see here, this is not recent history by any means. I mean, he passed in 1777. But just a beautiful area for a final resting place. It says, in this monument rest the remains Chief Cornstalk, well known and respected by white settlers and Indian tribes of the Ohio Valley. As a chief of the Shawnees and head of the Northwestern Confederated Tribes, Cornstalk decided to make peace with the white man. However, he was forced to lead the attack on the Long Knives at the Battle of Point Pleasant. Although he survived the battle, he was murdered 3 years later by soldiers at Fort Randolph, which Fort Randolph used to be in this area where we are now. Now, the story that I have read, although it doesn't bring it out specifically here, is that all that was left of his remains were some bones, and the bones were actually placed inside of one of the cornerstones of this monument. Now, like I said, that's just something I read. They don't point that out here, but I'm thinking that's the case. So a great Native American leader who, would fight if need be, but he was also an advocate for peace, and really a peacekeeping mission is where Cornstalk lost his life. Very sad, but my goodness, what a piece of history. And you can only imagine what the hostilities were like between the two sides. I mean, just think about it. But just a beautiful area here. Beautiful park. then this place does just a magnificent job of paying tribute to their history. I mean, and what history is here. And I know not every place has history like this, but it just makes you wonder how many other places out there could really bring their history to the forefront if they chose to do so, like Point Pleasant has. It's a beautiful place, beautiful location here. You know, I've been doing this channel now. My first gravesite visit, that was about 5 years ago, and it still amazes me the stuff that I'm able to find. You know, historical places that maybe you've never heard of, but you know, in this series of Between the Dates, I've really enjoyed being able to do that, and you know, learning a lot myself too. So if you like cemetery and history videos, hey, this is the place for you. We'd love to have you. Now, another video of mine will be on the screen soon. I really hope you check it out. Leave me a comment below. I would love to know what you thought about the visit today. And once again, from Point Pleasant, West Virginia, I will see you again soon.
We've all seen grave markers and headstones, and normally they have two dates: birth and death, beginning and end. The events that occur between the dates tell the real story. Me, along with my team, bring you the stories, revelations, and history of what happens between the dates.